Her ex-billionaire CEO one-night stand collapses. His abandoned secret daughter showed up for interview in his company. I think she's my daughter. The words hung in the sterile hospital air as Dominic Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Technologies and one of the richest men in America, stared at his oldest friend with haunted eyes. You're what? Marcus Chen nearly dropped his coffee. The job applicant? The one who saved your life when you collapsed? 22 years ago, I spent one night with her mother. Then I disappeared to build my empire. Dominic's voice cracked. I never knew. I never wanted to know. But those eyes, Marcus. The moment I saw those amber eyes across my desk, my heart literally stopped. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the mistakes you buried in your past suddenly appeared at your doorstep? What would you do if the child you abandoned was now holding your life in their hands? How does a man who sacrificed everything for success face the daughter who paid the price for his ambition? If you want to discover how this billionaire's perfectly constructed world crumbles when faced with the daughter he never knew, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more incredible stories that will leave you questioning what truly matters in life. Dominic Blackwood's vision blurred as he stared at the resume in his trembling hands. The name at the top, Olivia Reeves, meant nothing to him, but the birth date made his heart stutter. 22 years ago, almost to the day since that night with Vanessa. The young woman sitting across his mahogany desk shifted uncomfortably under his prolonged silence. She had his eyes. How had he not noticed immediately? The same unusual shade of amber that had marked generations of Blackwoods. Mr. Blackwood, are you all right? Her voice was confident despite the awkward pause, a slight furrow between her brows. Dominic loosened his tie, suddenly finding it difficult to breathe. The corner office that had always felt like a throne room now seemed to be closing in around him. 22 years of single-minded ambition, of building Blackwood Technologies into a global empire worth billions, and now his past sat before him, unknowingly upending his carefully constructed world. I'm fine, he managed, though the room had begun to spin. Your credentials are impressive, Ms. Reeves. Stanford Computer Science? Internship at... The words died in his throat as a sharp pain lanced through his chest. The resume slipped from his fingers, scattering across the polished floor as he clutched at his shirt. Mr. Blackwood! Olivia leapt to her feet, alarm replacing her professional demeanor. Dominic tried to stand, to reassure her, but his legs buckled. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Olivia's face, those familiar amber eyes wide with concern, eyes he'd abandoned before they'd even opened to the world. Call an ambulance, Olivia shouted, rushing around the desk as the imposing CEO collapsed to the floor. She dropped to her knees beside him, fingers pressing against his neck to find a pulse. It was there, but erratic. The executive assistant burst through the door, her professional composure shattering at the sight of her boss sprawled on the imported carpet. What happened? She gasped, phone already in hand. I think it's his heart, Olivia said, loosening his tie completely and unbuttoning his collar. Tell them to hurry. As the assistant frantically relayed information to emergency services, Olivia leaned closer to Dominic's ashen face. Stay with me, Mr. Blackwood, she urged, though she wasn't sure he could hear her. Help is coming. His eyelids fluttered briefly, those amber eyes, so eerily similar to her own, focusing on her face for just a moment before closing again. Something passed between them in that instant, something Olivia couldn't name but felt in her bones. The steady beep of hospital monitors greeted Dominic as consciousness returned. A sterile ceiling came into focus, the antiseptic smell confirming he wasn't in his penthouse. Heart attack, said a voice to his right. Minor, but a warning shot across the bow. Dominic turned to find his CFO and oldest friend Marcus Chen sitting in a visitor's chair, his usually impeccable suit wrinkled from what appeared to be hours of waiting. How long? Dominic's voice was a rasp. Almost 12 hours. The doctors say you're lucky. Stress-induced, apparently. Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. What happened, Dom? Eliza said you collapsed during an interview. The memory flooded back. Amber eyes, a birth date that couldn't be coincidence, the crushing weight of recognition. The applicant, Dominic whispered, Did she? She called the ambulance, stayed until they loaded you in, then disappeared. Marcus studied him carefully. Who is she, Dom? I've never seen you rattled by anyone, let alone an entry-level applicant. Dominic closed his eyes, the weight of 2 decades of secrets pressing down on his chest more painfully than the heart attack. I think she's my daughter. Marcus's sharp intake of breath was followed by a long silence. When Dominic opened his eyes, his friend was staring at him with undisguised shock. You have a daughter? Since when? Since 22 years ago, apparently. Dominic's laugh was hollow. Her name is Olivia Reeves. Her mother is Vanessa Reeves. Recognition flickered across Marcus's face. Vanessa, the woman from the San Francisco conference, the one you... Yes, Dominic cut him off. That Vanessa. Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing. You never mentioned a child. I never knew. Or rather, I chose not to know. Dominic turned his gaze back to the ceiling, shame burning in his throat. She called me, left messages. I was so focused on securing that first round of funding that I ignored her. When she finally said she was pregnant, I sent money, anonymously. Then I blocked her number and buried myself in Building Blackwood. Jesus, Dom. Marcus ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. And now the daughter you never acknowledged just saved your life. That's some cosmic irony. She doesn't know who I am, Dominic said quietly. She couldn't. But I knew the moment I saw her eyes. The Blackwood eyes. What are you going to do? Dominic had built his empire on decisive action, on never hesitating when opportunity or crisis presented itself. But now, faced with the consequences of his most personal failure, he found himself adrift. I don't know, he admitted. For the first time in my life, Marcus, I have absolutely no idea what to do. 3 days later, Dominic stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, staring out at the city he'd conquered. The skyline was dotted with buildings bearing the Blackwood Technologies logo, monuments to his relentless drive. Yet for the first time, they felt hollow, steel and glass shells housing ambitions that suddenly seemed meaningless. His phone buzzed with another message from Marcus. They'd found her, Olivia Reeves, living in a modest apartment across town. Graduate of Stanford with honors, freelance software developer, raised by a single mother named Vanessa Reeves. Vanessa. Even thinking her name after all these years made something twist inside him. They'd met at a tech conference in San Francisco, both hungry young talents with dreams bigger than their bank accounts. One passionate night in his hotel room, full of whispered promises and shared ambitions. Then, the investment opportunity of a lifetime had appeared the next morning, the seed funding that would eventually grow into Blackwood Technologies. He'd left without saying goodbye, convinced he was doing them both a favor. When her calls came weeks later, he'd been too deep in negotiations, too focused on the future. By the time she'd left that final voicemail, I'm pregnant, Dominic, he'd already convinced himself that success required sacrifice. He'd sent money, anonymously, then blocked her number and buried himself in building his empire. Now that empire felt like a prison of his own making. The doorbell echoed through the penthouse, startling him from his thoughts. He wasn't expecting visitors, and his security team hadn't announced anyone. When he opened the door, Olivia Reeves stood in the hallway, her posture rigid with determination. You know who I am, she said. Not a question. Dominic nodded, stepping back to invite her in. How did you find out? Mom never hid that my father was someone she'd met at a conference. Olivia walked past him, taking in the minimalist luxury of his home with a critical eye. She never told me your name, but I saw how you looked at me in your office. Then I found the old news articles about Blackwood's meteoric rise. Saw your photo from 23 years ago. She turned to face him. The timing fit. And these, she gestured to her eyes, are hardly common. Dominic gestured toward the living area, and they sat across from each other, the coffee table between them like a demilitarized zone. Why apply to Blackwood Technologies? He asked finally. Did you know? I suspected, she admitted. Your company has the most advanced AI ethics division in the industry. That's my specialty. I didn't apply because of you. I applied despite you." The words stung, but Dominic couldn't deny their justice. "I sent money," he said weakly. Olivia's laugh was sharp. "Yes, the mysterious deposits. Mom used them for my education, nothing else. She built a life for us without your help, Mr. Blackwood. She worked 3 jobs sometimes, but I never went without what I needed." "Vanessa always was remarkable," Dominic said softly. "Don't." Olivia's voice hardened. "You don't get to admire her from a distance. Not after what you did." Silence stretched between them, heavy with 2 decades of absence. "Why are you here, Olivia?" Dominic finally asked. She studied him, those familiar eyes calculating. "Curiosity, mostly. I wanted to see what was so important that you'd abandon your own child for it." Her gaze swept the penthouse. Was it worth it? The question hit him like a physical blow. Before his heart attack, he might have said yes without hesitation. Now, facing the daughter he'd never known, the answer stuck in his throat. "I thought it was," he admitted. "I was wrong." Something flickered across Olivia's face, surprise perhaps that he hadn't tried to justify himself. "I don't expect forgiveness," Dominic continued. "I don't deserve it. But I'd like to know you, if you'll allow it." Olivia stood abruptly. "I haven't decided what I want yet. I just needed to see you to make it real." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Mom has cancer. Stage 3. That's the other reason I moved back, to help her through treatment." The news hit Dominic like a second heart attack. "Vanessa is sick?" "Don't worry, your money isn't needed. I've got good insurance through my freelance collective." Her hand rested on the doorknob. "But she might want to see you before—" She didn't finish the sentence. "I'll be in touch." The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Dominic alone with the ruins of the life he'd thought he wanted. For several minutes, he stood frozen, staring at the door as if Olivia might reappear. When she didn't, he moved to the bar and poured himself a scotch, then remembered his doctor's strict instructions and set it down untouched. Vanessa had cancer. The vibrant, brilliant woman who had once made him laugh until his sides hurt, who had challenged his ideas and pushed him to think bigger, she was fighting for her life, and he hadn't known, hadn't cared to know. He picked up his phone and called Marcus. "I need you to clear my schedule," he said without preamble. "Indefinitely." "Dom, you just had a heart attack. Your schedule is already cleared for the next 2 weeks." "No, I mean really clear it. Delegate everything that can be delegated. Postpone what can't." There was a pause on the line. "This is about her, isn't it? Your daughter." "And her mother," Dominic confirmed. "Vanessa has cancer, Marcus. Stage 3. "I'm sorry to hear that." Marcus's voice softened. "What are you planning to do?" Dominic looked out at his empire of glass and steel, the kingdom he'd built on the foundation of his greatest regret. "I'm going to try to fix the one thing money can't buy," he said quietly. "A second chance." The cancer center was nothing like Dominic had imagined. Instead of sterile white walls and the smell of disinfectant, warm colors and comfortable seating created an atmosphere of calm. Still, his heart pounded as he followed Olivia through the waiting area. "She doesn't know I contacted you," Olivia warned as they approached a private room. "This might be a mistake. I'll leave if she wants me to," Dominic promised. Olivia nodded, then pushed open the door. "Mom, you have a visitor." Vanessa Reeves sat in a recliner by the window, a book open in her lap. An IV stand beside her delivered clear fluid through a port in her chest. Her once vibrant auburn hair was gone, a colorful scarf wrapped around her head instead. But her eyes, deep brown and expressive, were exactly as Dominic remembered. Those eyes widened when she saw him, her book slipping forgotten to the floor. "Dominic?" "Hello, Vanessa." His voice sounded strange to his own ears, choked with emotions he couldn't name. Olivia glanced between them. "I'll get some coffee," she said, slipping out and closing the door. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, 22 years of silence stretching between them. "You look successful," Vanessa finally said, a hint of her old wry humor in her voice. "You look beautiful," he replied honestly. She snorted, gesturing to her scarf. Chemo chic is all the rage this season. Dominic moved closer, taking the visitor's chair beside her. "Olivia told me about the diagnosis. I'm so sorry. Vanessa? Cancer doesn't care how sorry anyone is." She studied him with those perceptive eyes. "Why are you here, Dominic? After all this time?" "Olivia applied for a position at my company. I didn't know." He swallowed hard. "I didn't know she existed until I saw her. She has my eyes." "She has more than your eyes," Vanessa said softly. "She has your brilliance, your determination. But thankfully, she has my heart." The gentle rebuke landed squarely. "I deserved that." "You deserve a lot worse." Vanessa adjusted her position, wincing slightly. "Did you ever read my messages? Listen to the voicemails?" Dominic shook his head, shame burning in his throat. "I convinced myself I was doing the right thing by staying away. That the money would be enough." "Money is never enough, Dominic." Her voice was tired rather than angry. "But we managed. Olivia is extraordinary, brilliant, compassionate, strong. You miss knowing an amazing person." "I'm beginning to see that," he admitted. "Vanessa, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'd like to help with your treatment. Whatever you need." "I don't need your money," she interrupted. "What I needed was your presence 22 years ago. What Olivia needed was a father." She sighed, the fight seeming to drain from her. "But that's ancient history now." "Is it?" Dominic leaned forward. "What if it doesn't have to be? What if I can be here now for both of you?" Vanessa's laugh held no humor. "People don't change, Dominic. Not really. You're still the man who chose ambition over everything else." "I had a heart attack," he said quietly, "the day I met Olivia. It made me realize I've been chasing the wrong things my entire life." Something in his tone made Vanessa look at him more carefully. "Near-death experiences can be clarifying," she conceded. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Dominic continued. "Just a chance to be of use now. To know my daughter. To help you through this." Vanessa was silent for a long moment, the only sound the soft beep of machines and the distant murmur of voices from the hallway. "Olivia is an adult," she said finally. "It's her choice whether to let you into her life. As for me..." She looked out the window, where spring sunlight illuminated a small garden. "I'm too tired to hold on to old anger, and this battle is hard enough without fighting past ghosts too." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. A door left slightly ajar rather than slammed shut. "Thank you," Dominic said simply. The door opened, and Olivia returned with 3 coffee cups balanced precariously in her hands. She paused, taking in the scene with wary eyes. "Everything okay in here?" Vanessa smiled at her daughter. "We're just catching up. 22 years takes a while to cover." Olivia handed out the coffees, her movements cautious. "And what's the verdict?" Vanessa and Dominic exchanged a look, something unspoken passing between them. "Your father would like to be part of our lives," Vanessa said carefully. "What do you think about that?" Olivia sat on the edge of her mother's recliner. "I think actions speak louder than words, and 22 years of silence speaks volumes." "You're right," Dominic acknowledged. "I can't change the past, but I can try to be better going forward, if you'll let me." Olivia's expression remained skeptical, but she didn't immediately reject the idea. "Mom needs someone to drive her to treatments on Thursdays. I have a standing client meeting I can't reschedule." It was a test, Dominic knew. A small opening, carefully guarded. "I'll be there," he promised. "Every Thursday for as long as needed." Olivia nodded once, decision made. "We'll see." The tension in the room eased slightly as they sipped their coffees, the conversation turning to safer topics. Olivia's freelance work, the latest developments in AI ethics, Vanessa's book club that continued to meet virtually despite her illness. When a nurse came to check Vanessa's IV, Dominic took it as his cue to leave. He stood, suddenly awkward. "I should go. You need your rest." Vanessa nodded. fatigue evident in the lines of her face. Thursday, 10 a.m. I'll be there, he promised again. Olivia walked him to the elevator, neither speaking until the doors opened. Thank you for coming, she said finally. It meant something to her. Dominic stepped into the elevator. And to you? Olivia's expression was unreadable. The jury's still out. As the doors closed between them, Dominic realized that for the first time in decades, something mattered more to him than the empire he'd built. And that something was the approval in his daughter's amber eyes. If you're enjoying this story of redemption and second chances, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories that will touch your heart. Let me know in the comments if you think Dominic deserves a second chance with his daughter. True to his word, Dominic arrived at Vanessa's modest townhouse the following Thursday at precisely 9:45 a.m. He'd cleared his schedule indefinitely, delegating responsibilities to his executive team with instructions not to disturb him on Thursdays unless the company was literally on fire. Vanessa answered the door in a simple sundress, another colorful scarf wrapped around her head. She looked tired but determined. You came, she said, surprise evident in her voice. I said I would. Dominic gestured to his car, a modest sedan rather than his usual luxury vehicle. Shall we? The drive to the cancer center was quiet, neither quite knowing how to bridge decades of silence. At the treatment center, Dominic sat beside Vanessa as the nurses hooked up her IV, watching as the powerful drugs that might save her life, or at least extend it, dripped slowly into her veins. You don't have to stay, Vanessa said after the nurses left. These sessions last hours. I usually read or nap. I brought work, Dominic replied, pulling out a tablet. Unless you'd prefer I leave? Vanessa studied him for a moment, then shook her head. It's fine. Just don't expect scintillating conversation. These drugs make me foggy. They settled into a companionable silence, Vanessa with her book, Dominic with his tablet. Occasionally, a nurse would check in, eyebrows raising slightly at the sight of one of the world's wealthiest tech moguls sitting in a standard visitor's chair, but no one commented. After about an hour, Vanessa's book slipped from her fingers as she dozed off, the medication taking its toll. Dominic gently retrieved it, marking her place. In sleep, with the tension eased from her face, he could see the young woman he'd known briefly but intensely all those years ago. His phone vibrated with a message from Olivia. How is she? Sleeping now, treatment going smoothly according to nurses. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, thank you for being there. It was a small thing, those 4 words, but they kindled something warm in Dominic's chest. A beginning, perhaps? When Vanessa woke, she seemed surprised to find him still there. You stayed. Of course. He handed her a cup of water. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, she admitted. The aftermath is worse than the treatment itself. Dominic nodded, making a mental note. Is there anything that helps? Anything I can get for you? Vanessa's smile was tired but genuine. Ginger tea sometimes settles my stomach, and distraction helps, talking about anything except cancer. I can do distraction, Dominic said. Did you know Blackwood Technologies started in a garage I rented for $300 a month? The landlord thought I was running a drug operation because I kept such odd hours. Vanessa's laugh was weak but real. That doesn't surprise me. You always did look slightly suspicious when you were focused on a project. They traded stories as the treatment continued. Dominic about the early days of his company, Vanessa about raising Olivia. Carefully at first, then with growing ease, they reconstructed the years they'd spent apart, filling in the vast blank spaces in each other's lives. By the time the nurses came to disconnect Vanessa's IV, something had shifted between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but a tentative bridge across the chasm of the past. Same time next week? Dominic asked as he helped her to the car. Vanessa nodded, leaning on his arm more heavily than she might have liked. If you can manage it. I'll be here, he promised, and meant it. The following Thursday established a pattern, and the Thursday after that cemented it. Dominic would arrive at Vanessa's home, drive her to treatment, sit with her through the long hours of chemotherapy, then take her home and ensure she was comfortable before leaving. On the fourth Thursday, he arrived to find Olivia at the door instead of Vanessa. "Mom's not feeling well," she said, her expression tight with worry. "The side effects have been worse this week. She's upstairs resting." Dominic's heart sank. "Should we reschedule the treatment?" Olivia shook her head. "The oncologist says it's important to stay on schedule, but I'm not sure she can make it down the stairs on her own." Without hesitation, Dominic moved past Olivia into the house. "Show me to her room." Vanessa was sitting on the edge of her bed, dressed but clearly exhausted. She looked up as they entered, a wan smile on her pale face. "I'm fine," she insisted. "Just a little tired." "You're not fine," Dominic said gently. "But you will be. May I help you downstairs?" For a moment, pride warred with necessity in Vanessa's eyes. Then she nodded, extending her hand. Instead of simply taking it, Dominic stepped forward and carefully lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, the cancer having stolen pounds from her already slender frame. "Dominic," she protested weakly, "I can walk." "Save your strength for fighting cancer," he replied, carrying her toward the stairs. "Let me do this." Over Vanessa's shoulder, he caught Olivia's expression. Surprise mingled with something that might have been the first hint of respect. At the treatment center, both Dominic and Olivia stayed, flanking Vanessa's recliner like sentinels. When she dozed off, they spoke in hushed tones. "Has she been this bad all week?" Dominic asked. Olivia nodded, worry etched in the lines of her face. "The doctor says it means the treatment is working, attacking the cancer cells aggressively. But watching her suffer..." She trailed off, blinking rapidly. Without thinking, Dominic reached across Vanessa's sleeping form and squeezed Olivia's hand. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. "She's strong," he said. "Like her daughter." Olivia's smile was small but genuine. "She had to be." The unspoken accusation hung between them, "because you weren't there." But for once, it didn't feel like a wall, just a truth they both acknowledged. "I have resources," Dominic said carefully. "Connections to the best oncologists, access to experimental treatments. I know you and Vanessa are proud, but please let me help." Olivia studied him for a long moment. Those amber eyes, his eyes, searching his face. Why now, after all this time? It was the question he'd been asking himself since the moment he'd collapsed in his office. The answer came with surprising clarity. "Because I finally understand what matters," he said simply. "And it was never the things I thought." Something in his tone must have convinced her. Because Olivia nodded slowly. "I'll talk to Mom about it, when she's feeling stronger." It was a small victory, but in that moment, it felt more significant than any business deal he'd ever closed. As the weeks passed, a fragile routine developed. Dominic drove Vanessa to her Thursday treatments, but he also began appearing at other times, bringing dinner when Olivia worked late, accompanying them to doctor's appointments, even attending Vanessa's virtual book club when she was too tired to participate but didn't want to miss it. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the walls around Olivia began to lower. She started texting him directly rather than through Vanessa. She asked his opinion on coding problems she encountered in her freelance work. She even laughed at his admittedly terrible jokes. One evening, as they sat in Vanessa's living room after she had gone to bed early, Olivia asked the question that had clearly been on her mind. "Why didn't you want me?" The directness of it caught Dominic off guard. He set down his coffee cup, giving the question the consideration it deserved. "It wasn't about not wanting you," he said finally. "It was about wanting something else more, or thinking I did." He met her gaze steadily. "I was wrong, Olivia. Catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. And I will regret it for the rest of my life." Olivia absorbed this, her expression thoughtful. "Mom never spoke badly of you, you know. Even when I was angry about not having a father, she never fed that anger. She just said you had different priorities. She was being kind, more than I deserved. Maybe," Olivia twisted her coffee cup in her hands. "Or maybe she understood something I'm just beginning to see." "What's that?" "That people can change, that it's never too late to try to be better. The words hung between them, fragile as spun glass but infinitely precious. I hope that's true, Dominic said softly. Because I'm trying, Olivia. I'm trying to be the father you deserved all along. She didn't respond directly, but when she left that night, she hugged him briefly. The first physical contact she had initiated. It lasted only a moment, but to Dominic, it felt like absolution. The next morning, his phone rang at 5 a.m. Olivia's name flashed on the screen, sending a spike of adrenaline through him. Olivia? What's wrong? It's Mom. Her voice was tight with panic. She's burning up with fever. The oncologist said to bring her to the emergency room immediately. Any infection could be life-threatening with her compromised immune system. I'm on my way, Dominic said, already reaching for his clothes. 10 minutes, tops. He made it in 8, finding Vanessa bundled in blankets despite the fever, Olivia frantically gathering medications and medical records. My car's downstairs, he said, moving immediately to Vanessa's side. Can you walk? She shook her head weakly, her eyes glassy with fever. Without hesitation, Dominic lifted her into his arms for the second time, her heat radiating through his shirt. Hang on, Vanessa, he murmured as he carried her to the elevator. Just hang on. At the hospital, Dominic's name opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed. Within minutes of their arrival, Vanessa was in a private room, doctors and nurses swarming around her, antibiotics flowing into her veins. Neutropenic fever, the oncologist explained when he arrived. Her white blood cell count is dangerously low from the chemotherapy, making her vulnerable to infections. We've identified the bacteria in her bloodstream and are treating it aggressively. Will she be okay? Olivia's voice was small, her hand gripping Dominic's arm unconsciously. The doctor's expression was grave, but not hopeless. The next 24 hours are critical, but she's receiving the best possible care, and she was brought in quickly. That makes a significant difference. As the doctor left, Olivia seemed to realize she was holding on to Dominic. She started to pull away, but he covered her hand with his own. We'll get through this, he promised. Together. For once, she didn't argue. The hours crawled by, marked by the steady beep of monitors and the quiet efficiency of the medical staff. Dominic and Olivia took turns sitting at Vanessa's bedside, speaking softly to her even though she was heavily sedated. During one of his shifts, as dawn broke over the city, Dominic held Vanessa's too warm hand and found himself speaking from the heart. I'm so sorry, Vanessa, he whispered, not just for leaving, but for missing everything. For not being there when you were sick with morning sickness, when you were scared about becoming a mother, when Olivia took her first steps or said her first word. I missed it all because I thought success meant corner offices and stock options. He swallowed hard. Please don't leave now, just when I'm finally learning what matters. Please fight. For Olivia. For yourself. And if it helps at all, for me too. He didn't know if she could hear him, but her fingers twitched slightly in his grasp, and he chose to take it as a sign. When Olivia returned with coffee, her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. Any change? The nurse said her fever is down slightly. That's good. Olivia nodded, handing him a cup. I called your office. Your assistant said the board is demanding an emergency meeting about your extended absence. Dominic took the coffee but made no move to leave. They can demand all they want. I'm not going anywhere. Something like surprise flickered across Olivia's face. But your company will survive without me for a few days. He met her gaze steadily. Some things are more important. For the first time since they'd met, Olivia smiled at him without reservation. Yes, they are. By evening, Vanessa's fever had broken, and the doctors were cautiously optimistic. By the following afternoon, she was awake and alert enough to be annoyed by the hospital food. This jello is an offense against culinary arts, she complained weakly, pushing the tray away. Dominic and Olivia exchanged relieved glances. If Vanessa was critiquing the food, she was definitely on the mend. I could smuggle in some real food, Dominic offered. What sounds good? Vanessa considered this, then smiled mischievously. Remember that little Thai place in San Francisco? The one with the green curry that made you sweat? The memory caught Dominic off guard. A rainy afternoon before the conference, ducking into a hole-in-the-wall restaurant, laughing as he tried to pretend the spice wasn't overwhelming him. You remember that? I remember everything about those 3 days, Dominic. Her voice was soft, her eyes clear despite the medication. They were important to me. Something shifted in his chest, a tightness he hadn't realized he'd been carrying for 22 years. They were important to me too. I just forgot that somewhere along the way. Olivia cleared her throat, reminding them of her presence. I hate to break up this touching moment, but Mom's not getting Thai food while she's on antibiotics. Doctor's orders. Vanessa sighed dramatically. Betrayed by my own daughter. How about some soup from that place you like? Olivia suggested. I could go get it while Dad stays with you. The word hung in the air between them. Dad. Olivia had never called him that before. From her startled expression, she hadn't planned to say it. The three of them froze, the moment crystallizing around that single, powerful word. Dominic's heart seemed to stop, then restart with a painful thump. He kept his expression carefully neutral, afraid that any reaction might cause Olivia to retreat. Vanessa broke the tension with a gentle smile. Soup sounds perfect, sweetheart. Olivia nodded, clearly flustered, and grabbed her purse. I'll be back in 30 minutes or so. As the door closed behind her, Vanessa turned to Dominic, her expression serious despite her weakness. Don't make too much of it, she warned. She's vulnerable right now. We all are. I know, he said quietly, but I can't help hoping it means something. Vanessa reached for his hand, her fingers cool against his palm. It does mean something. Just don't push too hard, too fast. She's spent her whole life without a father. It will take time for her to adjust to having one. Dominic nodded, squeezing her hand gently. I've waited 22 years. I can be patient now. When Olivia returned with the soup, she acted as if nothing significant had happened, and Dominic followed her lead. But something had changed between them. A door had opened that couldn't be closed again. After 3 days, Vanessa was released from the hospital with strict instructions to rest and avoid any possible sources of infection. Her oncologist also recommended postponing her next chemotherapy session until her body had recovered from the infection. I'll stay with her, Olivia told Dominic as they helped Vanessa settle into her bedroom at home. I can work remotely for a while. We could hire a nurse, Dominic suggested. Someone professional to monitor her condition. Vanessa made a face from her propped-up position in bed. I don't want a stranger hovering over me all day. What about both? Dominic proposed. A nurse during the day when Olivia needs to work and family the rest of the time. The word family slipped out naturally, and this time neither Vanessa nor Olivia seemed startled by it. That could work, Olivia conceded. But where would you be? The question was direct. A challenge and an invitation wrapped in one. Wherever you both need me to be, Dominic answered honestly. I've rearranged my schedule indefinitely. Marcus is handling the day-to-day operations at Blackwood. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. The great Dominic Blackwood, delegating? I never thought I'd see the day. Neither did I, he admitted. But priorities change. The arrangement worked better than any of them might have expected. A competent, kind nurse named Elena came during business hours, allowing Olivia to focus on her freelance projects. Dominic split his time between Vanessa's home and his office, handling only the most critical business matters and spending the rest of his time helping with Vanessa's care. In the evenings, the three of them often ate dinner together, sometimes joined by Marcus or Olivia's friends from college. Slowly, awkwardly at first, they began to form something that resembled a family. 2 weeks after her hospitalization, Vanessa was strong enough to resume chemotherapy. The night before her treatment was scheduled to restart, Dominic found her sitting alone on the small patio behind her townhouse, wrapped in a blanket despite the mild evening. Mind some company? He asked, pausing at the door. She patted the space beside her on the bench. I was just thinking about tomorrow. Dominic sat, leaving a respectful distance between them. Are you worried? Terrified, she admitted, her voice steady despite the word. The first round nearly killed me, and now we know how vulnerable I am to infection. The doctors have adjusted your protocol, and will be more vigilant about any signs of fever or infection. Vanessa smiled faintly. That's still strange to hear from you. Strange good or strange bad? Just strange. She turned to look at him directly. Why are you really here, Dominic? And don't say it's because of Olivia, or because you had a heart attack and saw the light. I want the truth. The question deserved honesty, and after a moment's reflection, Dominic gave it to her. I'm here because when I thought I was dying on that office floor, it wasn't my company or my achievements that flashed before my eyes. It was you. The 3 days we spent together in San Francisco, the way you laughed, the plans we made, and then the crushing realization that I'd thrown away the only real connection I'd ever had for things that turned out to be meaningless. Vanessa's expression softened. They weren't meaningless, Dominic. You built something remarkable. You've changed the world with your technology. But at what cost? He shook his head. I could have had both, the company and a family. I just convinced myself I had to choose. And now? Now I know better. Too late, probably. But I know. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment, her gaze returning to the small garden where early summer flowers were beginning to bloom. Maybe not too late, she said finally. For you and Olivia, at least. And for us? The question slipped out before he could stop it. Her smile was sad, but not unkind. That's complicated, Dominic. 22 years and stage 3 cancer complicated. I understand. He started to rise, but her hand on his arm stopped him. I didn't say impossible, she clarified. Just complicated. I'm not the same woman you knew in San Francisco, and you're not the same man. No, he agreed. We're not. But maybe that's okay. She nodded, then shivered slightly as a cool breeze swept across the patio. You should get inside, Dominic said, standing and offering his hand. Big day tomorrow. Vanessa took his hand but didn't immediately rise. Stay tonight, she said quietly. Not like that. But I don't want to be alone, and Olivia needs her rest too. Of course, he replied, helping her to her feet. Whatever you need. That night, Dominic slept on the couch in Vanessa's room, waking at every small sound to check on her. In the gray light of dawn, he found her watching him, her expression unreadable. You didn't have to stay awake all night, she said. I wasn't planning to, he admitted with a rueful smile. But it turns out I'm not very good at sleeping when someone I care about is worried. Something flickered in her eyes at the words, someone I care about. But before she could respond, Olivia appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day. Ready for round 2? She asked her mother, her tone deliberately light. Vanessa nodded, pushing herself up to sitting. As ready as anyone can be for poison that might save their life. The second round of chemotherapy proved less physically devastating than the first, perhaps because they were all better prepared. Dominic and Olivia created a detailed schedule, ensuring that Vanessa was never alone during treatment days and that she had the right foods, medications, and comforts to ease the side effects. 3 weeks into the second round, Olivia approached Dominic as he worked on his laptop at Vanessa's kitchen table. I've been thinking about your job offer, she said without preamble. Dominic looked up, surprised. He had mentioned the possibility of a position at Blackwood Technologies weeks ago, but Olivia had deflected, saying she valued her independence as a freelancer. It's still open, he said carefully. No pressure, of course. I know. She sat across from him, her expression thoughtful. But I've been researching Blackwood's AI ethics division. The work you're doing there is important. Groundbreaking, even. And the position you described would allow me to make a real impact. You would, Dominic agreed. Your perspective is exactly what the division needs. I'd want to be clear that I earned the position on merit, Olivia continued. No special treatment because I'm the boss's daughter. Absolutely. You'd report to Dr. Patel, not to me. And your credentials speak for themselves. Olivia nodded, decision made. Then I accept. But I'll need a flexible schedule until Mom is better. Of course, Whatever you need. Dominic hesitated, then added, I'm proud of you, Olivia. Not because you're taking the job, but because of the person you are, the woman you've become. A faint blush colored her cheeks. Mom did a good job. Yes, she did. He smiled. The best. The following week brought Vanessa's mid-treatment scan, the moment of truth that would reveal whether the chemotherapy was working. The three of them sat in the oncologist's office, tension radiating between them as they waited for the results. Dr. Sharma entered with a tablet in hand, his expression giving nothing away as he sat behind his desk. The scans show significant reduction in tumor size, he said, without preamble. The treatment is working better than we anticipated. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Olivia let out a choked sob of relief, gripping her mother's other hand. So what happens now? Dominic asked, his own voice unsteady. We continue with the planned course of chemotherapy, Dr. Sharma explained. Then reassess after the full regimen is complete. But this is very encouraging, Miss Reeves. Very encouraging indeed. Outside the hospital, the three of them stood in the sunshine, the weight of uncertainty lifted at least temporarily from their shoulders. We should celebrate, Dominic suggested. Dinner somewhere special? Vanessa shook her head. I'm too tired for restaurants, but I wouldn't say no to take out and a movie at home. Perfect, Olivia agreed. Dad, you pick up the food. I'll help Mom get settled at home. There it was again. Dad. This time said naturally, without the startled aftermath. Dominic met Olivia's eyes and saw no regret there, only a cautious warmth. Any requests? He asked, keeping his tone casual despite the emotion threatening to choke him. Surprise us, Vanessa said with a smile. You always did have good taste. That evening, as they ate Thai food, mild, in deference to Vanessa's sensitive stomach, and watched an old comedy that had them all laughing, Dominic found himself overwhelmed by a sense of rightness. This was what he had been missing all those years. Not just success or achievement, but connection. Family. As if reading his thoughts, Vanessa caught his eye across the living room and smiled. A private smile that held memories of the past and, perhaps, possibilities for the future. Later, as he prepared to leave, Olivia walked him to the door. Thank you, she said quietly, for being here. For not giving up on us. I should be thanking you, Dominic replied, for giving me a second chance I don't deserve. Olivia considered this, then shook her head. Maybe it's not about deserving. Maybe it's just about choosing to be better today than you were yesterday. The wisdom in her words struck him deeply. When did you get so insightful? Her smile was wry. I had a good teacher. Mom never let me get away with holding grudges or living in the past. She's remarkable, Dominic agreed. You both are. Olivia hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged him. Not the brief, awkward embrace of before, but a real hug, her arms tight around his waist. Good night, Dad, she said, the word no longer strange on her lips. Good night, Olivia, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. As he drove back to his penthouse, Dominic realized that for the first time in decades, he was truly happy. Not the fleeting satisfaction of closing a deal or launching a product, but a deep, abiding contentment that came from being exactly where he was meant to be. His phone rang as he parked in his building's garage. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. How did the scan go? His friend asked without preamble. Good news, Dominic replied. The treatment is working. That's fantastic. Marcus's relief was evident even through the phone. Listen, I hate to bring this up now, but the board is getting restless. They're questioning your commitment to the company. Some are even suggesting it might be time for new leadership. 6 months ago, such news would have sent Dominic into a rage, triggering emergency meetings and strategic counterattacks. Now, he found himself surprisingly calm. Let them question, he said. I founded Blackwood Technologies. I built it from nothing. If they think they can push me out, they're welcome to try. That's the Dom I know, Marcus chuckled. But seriously, you might need to make an appearance soon. Remind them who's boss. I will, Dominic promised. But on my terms, not theirs. I'm restructuring my priorities, Marcus. The company is important, but it's not everything anymore. There was a pause on the line. She must be quite a woman, this Vanessa. She is, Dominic agreed. And Olivia is extraordinary. I miss so much, Marcus. I don't want to miss any more. Then don't, his friend said simply. I'll hold the fort as long as needed. Just don't be surprised if there's a coup brewing. Let them try, Dominic repeated, and found he meant it. The company mattered, but not at the expense of what he'd found, or rather, rediscovered. The next morning, he arrived at Vanessa's with coffee and pastries, using the key she had given him the week before. He found her already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread before her. What's all this? He asked, setting down the breakfast items. Medical bills, she sighed. Insurance covers most of it, but the co-pays and deductibles are adding up. I'm trying to figure out what I can sell to cover the gap. Dominic frowned. You don't need to sell anything. I can… Don't say it, Vanessa interrupted. I've managed on my own for 22 years. I'm not about to become financially dependent on you now. It's not dependency, Vanessa. It's help. From Olivia's father. From someone who cares about you. She looked up at him, her expression softening slightly. I know you want to help, but this is about my dignity, Dominic. About finishing what I started, raising our daughter and building a life without relying on anyone else. Dominic sat across from her, choosing his words carefully. What if there was a way I could help that wouldn't feel like charity? Such as? Olivia has accepted a position at Blackwood Technologies. As her parent, she's eligible for the family health insurance plan, which happens to be the best in the industry, with no deductibles and minimal copays. It would cover you as her dependent. Vanessa's eyebrows rose. That's quite a coincidence. Not entirely, Dominic admitted. I may have reviewed our benefits package recently and made some adjustments. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Still finding loopholes, I see. Only for good causes. He pushed a coffee toward her. Think about it, at least. For Olivia's sake, if not your own. She's worried about these bills, too. Vanessa sighed, accepting the coffee. I'll think about it, but only because it would come through Olivia's employment, not directly from you. That's all I ask. Dominic hesitated, then added, and maybe one more thing. What's that? Dinner, just the two of us, when you're feeling up to it. Surprise flickered across her face. Like a date? Exactly like a date. He met her gaze steadily. I'd like the chance to know the woman you've become, Vanessa, if you're interested. For a long moment, she simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. I think I'd like that too, but not until after this round of chemo is finished. I'd prefer not to throw up on you during our first date in 2 decades. Dominic laughed, relief and joy mingling in his chest. It's a date, then, worth waiting for. As summer turned to fall, Vanessa's health improved steadily. The chemotherapy continued to shrink her tumors, and her strength gradually returned. Olivia thrived in her new position at Blackwood Technologies, quickly earning the respect of her colleagues through her brilliant work in AI ethics. And Dominic found himself living a life he had never imagined but now couldn't picture living without. He split his time between the office, where he was fending off the board's attempts to reduce his role, and Vanessa's home, where he had become a fixture. He drove Vanessa to treatments, attended doctor's appointments, and spent evenings helping Olivia with complex coding problems or simply watching movies together as a family. Family. The word no longer felt foreign to him. It felt like coming home. When Vanessa completed her final round of chemotherapy, the three of them celebrated with a small party at her townhouse. Marcus came, along with Olivia's college friends and Vanessa's book club members. The house overflowed with flowers, laughter, and a sense of cautious optimism. The final scan is next week, Vanessa reminded Dominic, as they stood in a quiet corner of the kitchen. Don't celebrate too much yet. I'm celebrating your strength, he corrected. Whatever the scan shows, you fought with incredible courage. She smiled, the color finally returning to her cheeks after months of pallor. We've all fought, in our own ways. Some of us joined the battle late, Dominic said ruefully. But you showed up, Vanessa replied, her hand finding his. That's what matters. Across the room, Olivia was deep in conversation with Marcus about Blackwood's latest AI project. Catching Dominic's eye, She smiled and gave a small wave. She's happy, Vanessa observed. Happier than I've seen her in a long time. Because of the job? Partly. But mostly because she finally has what she always wanted. A complete family. The words warmed Dominic from within. And you? Are you happy, Vanessa? She considered the question seriously. I'm getting there. Cancer has a way of reshuffling your priorities, making you see what matters. Like heart attacks, Dominic agreed. Near-death experiences are clarifying. Very, she squeezed his hand. I believe you promised me a date when chemo was finished. I did. Name the time and place. Tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, I'm still tired easily. Maybe dinner at that little Italian place down the street? Perfect, Dominic agreed, his heart lighter than it had been in years. The following evening, he arrived at Vanessa's door with flowers. Not an ostentatious bouquet, but a simple arrangement of daisies, which he remembered were her favorites. You remembered, she said, clearly touched as she accepted them. I remember everything about those 3 days, he echoed her words from months before. They were important to me, too. The restaurant was small and intimate, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. They were seated in a quiet corner, away from the bustle of the main dining area. This feels strange, Vanessa admitted as they studied their menus. Dating the father of my child after 22 years. Good strange or bad strange? Dominic asked, echoing their earlier conversation. Just strange, she smiled, but not unpleasant. They ordered, and as they waited for their food, Dominic found himself suddenly nervous. This brilliant, resilient woman had every reason to keep him at arm's length, yet here she was, giving him a chance he didn't deserve. What are you thinking? Vanessa asked, noticing his expression. That I'm the luckiest man alive, he answered honestly, and that I don't deserve this second chance. Maybe not, she agreed, but you're getting it anyway. The question is, what will you do with it? It was a challenge and an invitation wrapped in one, just like Olivia's question months before. The resemblance between mother and daughter had never been clearer. I want to be worthy of it, Dominic said. Of you, of Olivia, of this family we're somehow building after all this time. And Blackwood Technologies, your empire? It's important, he acknowledged. The work matters, but it's not everything. Not anymore. Vanessa studied him, her gaze penetrating. I believe you, she said finally, and that surprises me more than anything. Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics, books they'd read, places they'd traveled, the changes in technology since they'd last known each other. It was easy, comfortable, as if the years between them had compressed into something manageable. After dinner, they walked slowly back to Vanessa's townhouse, her arm linked through his. I had a nice time, she said as they reached her door. Better than nice, actually? So did I. Dominic hesitated, suddenly unsure of the protocol. Would it be all right if I kissed you goodnight? Vanessa's smile was both amused and tender. I think that would be appropriate for a first date, even if we did things rather out of order the first time around. He leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. But she met him halfway, her lips soft against his. The kiss was gentle, brief, but filled with possibility. Good night, Dominic, she whispered as they parted. Good night, Vanessa. He waited until she was safely inside before turning to leave, his heart full. The final scan results came 3 days later. Once again, the three of them sat in Dr. Sharma's office, the tension palpable as they waited. This time, when the doctor entered, he was smiling. Complete remission, he announced without preamble. The tumors have disappeared entirely. Vanessa gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Olivia burst into tears, throwing her arms around her mother. Dominic sat frozen, the words echoing in his mind. Complete remission. Vanessa would live. Of course, we'll need regular follow-ups, Dr. Sharma continued. Cancer can recur, especially in the first few years after treatment. But for now, Ms. Reeves, you are cancer-free. Outside the hospital, in the crisp autumn air, they stood in a tight circle, none of them quite able to believe the news. What do we do now? Olivia asked, wiping away tears of joy. Now, Vanessa said, her voice steady despite the emotion shining in her eyes. We live. The words hung in the air between them, full of promise and possibility. Together, Dominic added, taking Vanessa's hand in his left and Olivia's in his right. If you'll have me. Vanessa and Olivia exchanged a look, some unspoken communication passing between them. Then, simultaneously, they squeezed his hands. Together, they agreed. If you've been moved by this story of redemption and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us it's never too late to change. Share your thoughts in the comments about whether forgiveness and family can truly heal old wounds. 6 months later, Dominic stood at the altar of a small chapel, Marcus beside him as best man. The gathered guests were few but significant. Olivia's friends, Vanessa's book club, key employees from Blackwood Technologies who had become like family over the years. When the music began and Vanessa appeared at the end of the aisle, Dominic's breath caught in his throat. She was radiant in a simple ivory dress, her hair, now grown back in soft curls, crowned with flowers. But it was Olivia beside her, arm linked with her mother's, who brought tears to his eyes. His daughter, walking her mother down the aisle to marry the father she had only known for a year. As they reached him, Olivia placed her mother's hand in his, then stepped to the side, taking her place as maid of honor. Who gives this woman to be married? The officiant asked, following tradition despite the unconventional arrangement. I do, Olivia said clearly. Her daughter. The ceremony was brief but meaningful, with vows they had written themselves. When it came time for Dominic to speak, he looked into Vanessa's eyes and found the words he had been searching for. 23 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life by walking away from you. I spent the next 2 decades building an empire of glass and steel, thinking it would fill the emptiness inside me. It never did. Then fate gave me a second chance I didn't deserve, through a heart attack, a job interview, and the daughter I never knew I needed. He squeezed Vanessa's hands. I promised to spend every day of the rest of our lives making up for the time we lost. To be the husband and father I should have been all along. To remember, always, that true success isn't measured in stock prices or market share, but in the love we give and receive. Vanessa's eyes shimmered with tears as she spoke her own vows. 23 years ago, I thought my heart would never heal from losing you. But then I had Olivia, and she became my world. I built a life without you, but there was always a space that remained empty. When you came back into our lives, I was afraid to trust, afraid to hope. But you showed up day after day, proving with actions what words could never convey. I promised to embrace this unexpected second chance, to build a future together that honors our past without being defined by it. To remember that love, like life, can surprise us when we least expect it. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in cheers. But it was Olivia's radiant smile that meant the most to both of them. At the reception, held in the garden of the home they now shared, Dominic found a moment alone with his daughter. Happy? He asked, watching as she sipped champagne and surveyed the celebration. Happier than I ever thought possible, she admitted. A year ago, Mom was fighting for her life and I didn't even know my father. Now look at us. Life can change in an instant, Dominic agreed. Sometimes for the worse, but sometimes, if we're very lucky, for the better. Olivia studied him, those amber eyes, his eyes, thoughtful. You know, when I applied to Blackwood Technologies, I never imagined this outcome. I just wanted to see what was so important that you'd abandon your own child for it. And now? Now I understand that you weren't a villain in our story. Just a man who made a terrible mistake and spent 22 years paying for it without even knowing what he'd lost. She smiled. And a man brave enough to try to make it right when he finally understood. Dominic felt his throat tighten with emotion. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Olivia. Maybe not, she agreed, echoing her mother's words from months before. But you're getting it anyway. Because that's what family does. We forgive each other's mistakes and help each other become better. Across the garden, Vanessa caught his eye and smiled. That private smile that was just for him. Beside her, Marcus was gesturing animatedly, likely sharing some embarrassing story from Dominic's early days as a tech entrepreneur. "Go to your wife, Dad," Olivia said, nudging him gently. "She's waiting for you." As Dominic crossed the garden to Vanessa's side, he marveled at the journey that had brought them here. A heart attack that had saved his life in more ways than one. A daughter brave enough to confront the father who had abandoned her. A woman strong enough to fight cancer and old wounds simultaneously. And himself, a man who had nearly lost everything that mattered before he even knew what it was. "What are you thinking about with that serious expression?" Vanessa asked as he reached her, slipping her arm around his waist. Dominic looked around at the gathering, at Olivia laughing with her friends, at Marcus raising a toast, at the simple beauty of the home they now shared. "I'm thinking that some people spend their whole lives chasing success," he said, without ever realizing that it was right in front of them all along. Vanessa smiled, understanding in her eyes. "Better late than never." "Much better," Dominic agreed, and kissed his wife as the sun set on their new beginning. 1 year later, Dominic stood at the podium in Blackwood Technologies' main auditorium. Hundreds of employees gathered to hear his announcement. "For 25 years, I've had the privilege of leading this company from a startup in a rented garage to one of the most influential technology firms in the world," he began. "It has been the journey of a lifetime, filled with challenges, triumphs, and lessons I never expected to learn." He paused, his gaze finding Vanessa and Olivia in the front row, both watching him with proud smiles. "But the most important lesson came not from business strategy or market analysis, but from a heart attack and a job interview that changed everything. I learned that true success isn't measured in quarterly reports or stock prices, but in the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind." A murmur ran through the crowd as employees exchanged glances, sensing what was coming. "That's why today, I'm announcing my transition from CEO to chairman of the board. Effective immediately, Blackwood Technologies will be led by someone who embodies the values this company was founded on: innovation, integrity, and a commitment to technology that improves lives." Dominic gestured to Marcus, who stood and joined him at the podium. "Marcus Chen has been with Blackwood from the beginning. He knows this company as well as I do, maybe better. Under his leadership, I have no doubt that Blackwood will reach heights I never imagined." The applause was thunderous as Marcus shook Dominic's hand, emotion evident on both their faces. "And as for me," Dominic continued when the noise subsided, "I'll be focusing on the Blackwood Foundation, our new philanthropic arm dedicated to making technology accessible to underserved communities worldwide. And of course, on being a better husband and father than I was in my first attempt." Laughter rippled through the audience, many of whom had witnessed Dominic's transformation over the past 2 years. As he stepped away from the podium, Vanessa and Olivia rose to meet him. Olivia, now the head of Blackwood's expanding AI ethics division, hugged him tightly. "Proud of you, Dad," she whispered. Vanessa took his hand, her wedding ring catching the light. "Ready for the next chapter?" Dominic looked at the two women who had given him a second chance he never deserved, but would spend the rest of his life earning. "More than ready," he said. "It took me 22 years to find my way home. I'm not wasting another minute." Together, the family that fate, forgiveness, and love had forged walked out of the auditorium and into their future. Not perfect, not without challenges, but together. And in the end, that was the only success that truly mattered. As the years passed, the Blackwood family settled into a rhythm that none of them could have imagined when Olivia first walked into that interview. The Blackwood Foundation grew to become one of the most influential philanthropic organizations in the tech sector, focusing on bringing educational opportunities and technological access to communities around the world. Dominic, who had once measured success in stock prices and market share, now found himself measuring it in the smiles of children using computers for the first time, in the gratitude of teachers receiving the tools they needed, and in the quiet moments at home with the family he had almost lost before he knew he had them. On a crisp autumn morning, 5 years to the day since Vanessa had received her all clear from cancer, Dominic sat on the patio of their new home, a spacious but comfortable house with a garden Vanessa had designed herself. He was reviewing proposals for the foundation's next initiative when Olivia appeared, a nervous energy about her that caught his attention immediately. "Everything okay?" he asked, setting aside his tablet. "Yes, no, maybe." She paced the length of the patio, then stopped abruptly. "I need your advice, as a father and as someone who's built something from nothing." Dominic gestured to the chair beside him. "I'm all ears." Olivia sat, then immediately stood again, too restless to remain still. "I've been offered a position, Chief Ethics Officer at Horizon AI." Dominic's eyebrows rose. Horizon was Blackwood's biggest competitor, a younger, hungrier company that had been trying to poach Blackwood talent for years. "That's quite an opportunity," he said carefully. "It would mean leaving Blackwood, leaving the team I've built." She ran a hand through her hair, a gesture so like his own that it still startled him sometimes. "But it would also mean a chance to implement ethical frameworks from the ground up in a company that's growing exponentially." "And you're worried about loyalty to Blackwood? To the family business?" Olivia nodded, finally sitting down. "Is it betrayal to leave, after everything?" Dominic considered the question seriously, understanding its weight. "Do you remember what I told you when you first accepted the position at Blackwood? That I'd earned it on merit. That there would be no special treatment." "Exactly. And you've more than proven that over the past 5 years." He leaned forward, meeting her gaze directly. "Olivia, Blackwood Technologies was never meant to be a cage for you. It was a starting point. If Horizon offers you a chance to make a bigger impact, to shape the ethical direction of AI development on a broader scale, then you should take it." "But what about Marcus, the team? You and Mom?" Dominic smiled. "Marcus will understand. He might grumble about it, but he'll understand. Your team will miss you, but you've trained them well. And as for your mother and me—" He reached out, covering her hand with his. "We're proud of you. No matter where you work or what title you hold. That doesn't change." Olivia's shoulders relaxed slightly. "You really mean that?" "With all my heart." He squeezed her hand. "The greatest gift a parent can give their child is wings, not roots. I learned that too late with you, but I'm trying to make up for lost time." Tears shimmered in Olivia's amber eyes. His eyes. "Thank you, Dad." The words still sent a thrill through him, even after all these years. "Besides," he added with a wink, "think of the family dinners. You can tell us all about Horizon's secret projects." "Dad," Olivia laughed, swatting his arm, "that would be corporate espionage. Worth a try." He grinned, then grew serious again. "Take the job, Olivia. If it's what you want, take it. Family transcends company loyalty." She nodded, decision made. "I'll call them today." As she stood to leave, Dominic caught her hand once more. "I'm proud of you, you know. Not for your accomplishments, impressive as they are, but for who you are. Your integrity, your compassion, your courage." "I had good examples," Olivia replied softly. "Eventually." The gentle tease made him smile. Their relationship had healed enough over the years that they could joke about the past without reopening old wounds. "Better late than never," he suggested. "Much better," she agreed, echoing her mother's words from years before. As Olivia left to make her call, Vanessa appeared in the doorway, a knowing look on her face. "She's taking the Horizon job?" she asked, joining Dominic on the patio. "You knew about it?" "She told me last week, wanted my opinion before approaching you." Vanessa settled beside him, her hand finding his automatically. "She was worried you'd see it as abandonment." Dominic winced. "That's a loaded word in our family history." "It is," Vanessa agreed. "But you handled it perfectly. I was listening." "Eavesdropping, you mean?" he teased, pulling her closer. "Maternal supervision," she corrected with a smile. "There's a difference." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the autumn leaves drift from the maple tree Olivia had planted when they moved in. A symbol, she'd said, of new beginnings. "Did I ever tell you," Dominic said suddenly, "that the day I collapsed in my office, I was thinking about San Francisco?" Vanessa looked at him curiously. "No, you never mentioned that." "I was." Something about Olivia's resume triggered the memory, The dates, maybe, or just some intuition I couldn't identify. I was remembering our last morning together, when you were still asleep and I was getting dressed to meet the investors. I wasn't asleep, Vanessa admitted. I was pretending, because I could tell you were pulling away already. Your mind was elsewhere. It was, he acknowledged. On the future I thought I wanted. If I had known what I was walking away from. We can't rewrite the past, Dominic. Vanessa's voice was gentle but firm. And maybe we shouldn't want to. Everything that happened, the good and the bad, led us here, to this moment. Would you trade this for a different path? Dominic looked around at the home they had built together, thought of Olivia's success and confidence, of the foundation's work, of the quiet joy he had found in this second chance at family. No, he said honestly. I wouldn't trade this for anything, but I do regret the years we lost. Not lost, Vanessa corrected. Just delayed. We took the scenic route to where we were meant to be. He laughed softly. That's a generous way of looking at my colossal mistake. Well, I've had time to develop perspective. She leaned her head against his shoulder. And speaking of perspective, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. Something in her tone made him turn to look at her more carefully. What is it? Dr. Sharma called yesterday with my 5-year checkup results. She paused, and for a heart-stopping moment, Dominic feared the worst. Then she smiled. Still cancer-free, officially considered in long-term remission. Relief flooded through him, so powerful it left him momentarily speechless. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if to reassure himself of her solid presence. You buried the lead there, he murmured into her hair. Nearly gave me another heart attack. Sorry, she laughed, not sounding sorry at all. I wanted to save the news for the right moment. And this is it? This is it. She pulled back to look at him. Our daughter spreading her wings, our health intact, the foundation thriving. This is exactly the moment to celebrate how far we've come. Dominic kissed her then, pouring 5 years of gratitude and 27 years of love into the gesture. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Vanessa Blackwood. More than I ever thought possible. I love you too, she replied. Even when you're being a stubborn, overprotective workaholic. I'm reformed, he protested with a smile. Mostly reformed, she corrected. You still check your emails at 3 in the morning. Old habits, he admitted, but I'm working on it. The sound of Olivia's footsteps interrupted their moment. She burst onto the patio, her face alight with excitement. I took the job, she announced, and they're offering me a seat on their ethics board too. I'll have direct input on company-wide policies. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Vanessa said, rising to embrace her daughter. We should celebrate, Dominic suggested. Dinner out tonight? The 3 of us? Actually, Olivia said, a hint of mischief in her smile. I was thinking maybe the 4 of us. Dominic and Vanessa exchanged confused glances. 4? Vanessa asked. Olivia's cheeks flushed slightly. I may have been seeing someone from the R&D department at Blackwood. For a few months now. May have been? Dominic raised an eyebrow. Definitely have been, she amended. His name is David. David Chen. Chen? Dominic's other eyebrow joined the first. Any relation to Marcus? His nephew, Olivia confirmed. And before you ask, no, that's not why I'm leaving Blackwood. We've been very professional at work. I wasn't going to suggest otherwise, Dominic assured her, though the thought had briefly crossed his mind. I'm just surprised Marcus never mentioned it. Because I asked him not to, Olivia explained. I wanted to be sure it was serious before bringing him home to meet the parents, especially when one of those parents is Dominic Blackwood, tech mogul and intimidating father figure. I'm not intimidating, Dominic protested, looking to Vanessa for support. She patted his arm consolingly. You're a little intimidating, dear. It's the eyebrows. He ran a self-conscious hand over said eyebrows as Olivia laughed. So, dinner tonight? She prompted. The 4 of us? We'd love to meet him, Vanessa assured her. Wouldn't we, Dominic? Absolutely, he agreed, though privately he was already planning the questions he would ask this David Chen, nephew of Marcus or not. As Olivia left to call her boyfriend with the dinner plans, Vanessa turned to Dominic with a knowing look. Don't interrogate the poor man, she warned. Olivia is 29 years old. She can make her own decisions about who she dates. I'm not going to interrogate him, Dominic defended himself. Just a few reasonable questions about his intentions, his 5-year plan, his views on marriage and family. Dominic. Vanessa's tone was firm but amused. You will be charming and welcoming. You will not treat this like a job interview or a board meeting. He sighed dramatically. Fine. But if he hurts her, then she will handle it because she is a strong, capable woman who doesn't need her father to fight her battles. Vanessa softened the words with a kiss. But it's sweet that you want to. That evening, as they sat around a table at Olivia's favorite restaurant, Dominic watched his daughter with the young man she had brought into their lives. David was clearly nervous, but handling it well, answering questions thoughtfully and asking his own with genuine interest. Most importantly, he looked at Olivia with unmistakable admiration and respect. So, David, Dominic said during a lull in the conversation, Marcus tells me you're working on the neural interface project. David nodded, his expression lighting up with enthusiasm. Yes, sir. We're developing non-invasive methods to allow direct brain-computer interaction. The potential applications for people with disabilities are incredible. And the ethical implications? Dominic pressed, unable to resist testing the young man's thinking. Substantial, David acknowledged without hesitation. That's actually how Olivia and I met. I requested a consultation with the ethics division about privacy concerns and potential for misuse. She challenged every assumption our team had made, forced us to reconsider our entire approach. He glanced at Olivia with clear admiration. She's brilliant. Intimidating, but brilliant. She gets that from both of us, Vanessa said with a smile. The brilliance and the intimidation. The conversation flowed easily after that, moving from work to shared interests, family backgrounds, and future plans. By the time dessert arrived, Dominic had to admit, privately at least, that David seemed like a good match for Olivia. He was intelligent without being arrogant, ambitious without being ruthless, and clearly smitten with Dominic's daughter. As they were preparing to leave, David excused himself to take a call from the lab, giving the family a moment alone. Well, Olivia asked, her attempt at casualness betrayed by the tension in her voice. What do you think? Dominic and Vanessa exchanged glances, a lifetime of understanding passing between them in an instant. We think, Vanessa said carefully, that he seems like a wonderful young man. Who clearly adores you, Dominic added, and has good taste in both career paths and women. The relief on Olivia's face was palpable. Really? You approve? It's not about our approval, sweetheart, Dominic said gently. It's about your happiness. Does he make you happy? Olivia nodded, a soft smile transforming her face. He does. He really does. Then that's all that matters, Vanessa concluded, reaching across the table to squeeze her daughter's hand. As David returned and they all walked out into the cool evening air, Dominic found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. From a heart attack in a corner office to this moment of quiet family joy, the path had been neither straight nor easy. There had been setbacks and struggles, tears and triumphs. But standing here now, watching his daughter lean into the embrace of a man who valued her mind as much as her heart, with his wife's hand warm in his own, Dominic knew with absolute certainty that every step had been worth it. Penny for your thoughts, Vanessa murmured as they watched Olivia and David walk ahead of them toward the parking lot. I was just thinking, Dominic replied, about second chances, and how sometimes, if you're very lucky, life gives you exactly what you need, even when it's not what you thought you wanted. Vanessa smiled up at him, the years falling away until he could see the young woman he'd met in San Francisco, full of dreams and determination. Sometimes, she agreed, the best things in life are the ones we never saw coming. Ahead of them, Olivia turned back, her face illuminated by the streetlights, those amber eyes, his eyes, bright with happiness. Are you two coming? She called. David suggesting coffee at that new place around the corner. We're right behind you, Dominic called back, squeezing Vanessa's hand. And they were, right where they belonged, following the daughter who had brought them back together into a future none of them could have imagined. but all of them had helped create. In the end, that was the true legacy of Dominic Blackwood. Not the company that bore his name or the technology he had helped develop, but the family he had almost lost and then found again. A family forged through forgiveness, strengthened by struggle and bound together by a love that had survived absence, illness, and the weight of the past. A family that proved it's never too late for a second chance, as long as you have the courage to take it. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales of redemption, forgiveness, and the enduring power of family. Remember, it's never too late to change your path and prioritize what truly matters. Share your thoughts in the comments below about second chances and the courage it takes to embrace them.